Guadalajara, Mexico, March 2019, 3 o'clock in the morning. Mateo Hernandez, just 4 years old, wakes up screaming in absolute terror. His parents rush to his room and find the boy drenched in sweat, trembling violently, pointing at the wall as if he's seeing something they cannot perceive. His small finger is rigid, unwavering, aimed at empty space.
The big pyramid, that's where I died. The sacred fire burned me.
Ana Hernandez, his mother, stands paralyzed in the doorway. How can a 4-year-old speak about death with such certainty? How can he use words like sacred fire when he can barely form complete sentences in Spanish? But what truly froze the blood in their veins came next. Mateo stops crying abruptly. His eyes, still wet with tears, take on a seriousness impossible for his age. The shift is instantaneous, unsettling, and then he whispers in a voice that no longer sounds like a child's.
I have to go back to Teotihuacan. My priest father is waiting for me.
Dr. Miguel Hernandez, Mateo's father and a history professor at the University of Guadalajara, feels the world spinning beneath his feet. Teotihuacan, the sacred city, the most mysterious necropolis of ancient Mexico. A city Mateo has never seen, never heard about, never even knew existed. Papa, Mateo continues, now speaking in perfect Nahuatl that even Miguel doesn't fully recognize.
I was Itzel. I was 8 years old when the gods called me.
The couple exchanges a look of absolute shock. Miguel grabs his phone with trembling hands and starts recording. Ana pulls Mateo close, and within moments the boy falls into a deep sleep as if nothing happened. But you haven't heard anything yet. What you're about to discover is the most shocking case of childhood reincarnation ever documented by modern science. A story that will challenge everything you believe about life, death, and the continuity of the human soul. Because that night in March was only the beginning. The days that followed became a waking nightmare for the Hernandez family. Mateo was no longer the same child. During daylight hours, he played normally, watched his favorite cartoons, asked for candy like any 4-year-old. But when night fell, something inexplicable took over. Every single night, at exactly 3 in the morning, Mateo would wake. Not crying, not screaming. He would simply sit up in bed, eyes open but distant, as if gazing through the walls of time itself. And then he would start speaking.
Quetzalcoatl is coming for me tonight, he whispered in perfect Nahuatl. The jade feathers are glowing in the darkness.
Ana recorded everything desperately. Miguel translated each word with help from colleagues who specialized in pre-Hispanic languages. But what they discovered chilled them to the bone. Mateo wasn't just speaking Nahuatl. He was speaking an archaic variant used specifically in religious ceremonies from the 6th century AD, a form of the language that existed only in ancient codices, one that even the country's best linguists struggled to fully comprehend. How is this possible? Miguel asked himself every night. My son can barely count to 10 in Spanish. But the most disturbing revelation was yet to come. One night, Dr. Elena Vasquez, an archaeologist specializing in Teotihuacan and a close friend of the family, visited the house to witness the phenomenon firsthand. Elena had dedicated 20 years of her life to studying the sacred city. She knew every stone, every symbol, every theory about that mysterious civilization. At exactly 3 in the morning, Mateo sat up as always. Dr. Elena, he said, looking directly into her eyes. He was speaking Spanish now, but with a maturity that shouldn't exist in a child his age. You're digging in the wrong place. Elena felt every hair on her body stand on end.
The Temple of the Feathered Serpent isn't where everyone thinks it is. It's 13 meters further north, beneath the platform of the altars. That's where my priest father hid the sacred texts before the invaders came.
The archaeologist was speechless.
The platform of the altars was a structure her team had classified as secondary. It had never been excavated in depth.
"Mateo," Elena whispered, "how do you know that?"
The boy looked at her with infinite sadness pooling in his young eyes.
"Because I helped bury them, Doctor, before the sacred fire took me to the gods."
And just as suddenly as it began, Mateo lay back down and slept deeply until dawn. Elena left the house that night knowing her life had changed forever. But what was about to happen would challenge even her faith in science. 3 weeks after that first encounter with Dr. Elena, the Hernandez family received a phone call that would change everything. Dr. Carlos Mendoza, director of the National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City and one of the country's most respected archaeologists, had heard about the case through Elena. His proposal was simple but devastating. Bring Mateo to the museum without prior notice. Have him identify artifacts from Teotihuacan. If he really lived there, Mendoza explained over the phone, he should recognize everyday objects that have never been publicly exhibited. On April 15, 2019, under strict scientific protocol, the family arrived at the museum. 6 cameras documented every second. 3 child psychology specialists observed Mateo's every gesture. Elena stood witness. What happened next left everyone present breathless. Mateo entered the Teotihuacan hall as if walking into his own home. He didn't show the typical curiosity of a 4-year-old. He didn't run toward the shiny objects. He didn't ask what things were. He walked directly toward a display case in the farthest corner, where ceramic fragments classified as domestic use classic period were exhibited. "This is my plate," he said, touching the glass. "My mother used to put amaranth tortillas on it." The archaeologists exchanged stunned glances. Chemical analysis had indeed confirmed microscopic traces of amaranth on that specific piece, a detail that had never been made public. But Mateo continued. He moved to a second display case and pointed at a small object, almost insignificant among the more striking jewelry. A bone whistle shaped like an owl. "Why do you have my father's collar here?" he asked with genuine confusion. "He used it to communicate with the other priests during night ceremonies." Dr. Mendoza felt his legs go weak. That whistle had been found just 6 months earlier in a private excavation. Its exact function had been a complete mystery until that moment. "Mateo," Elena whispered, "can you tell us anything else about this place?" The boy looked at her with that same ancient sadness. "Doctor, you have everything displayed wrong. The Pyramid of the Sun wasn't for worshipping the sun. It was the entrance to the underworld. That's why my father and I used to go down through these secret tunnels every new moon." "What tunnels?" Mendoza asked, his voice cracking. "The ones below, 32 meters deep. That's where the real treasures are." The silence in the hall was absolute. Because in March 2020, exactly 32 meters beneath the Pyramid of the Sun, Mendoza's team would discover the most extensive tunnel complex ever documented in Teotihuacan. But that revelation was still to come. After the impact at the museum, Mateo's obsession became uncontrollable. Every night, the boy woke at 3 in the morning asking the same question. "When are we going home, Mama? My priest father is waiting for me. The other children want to come back too." Ana and Miguel had stopped sleeping entirely. Their son's words haunted them. Other children? What other children? And why did Mateo speak of Teotihuacan as if it were truly his home? The family pressure reached its breaking point when Mateo began refusing food.
"This isn't my food," he cried, pushing away his plate. "I used to eat cacao flowers and sacred bee honey. My stomach hurts because I'm not home."
Dr. Miguel made the hardest decision of his life. On May 2, 2019, exactly 3 weeks after the museum test, the Hernandez family packed their bags and headed to Teotihuacan. The plan was simple: take Mateo to the ruins, show him they were just ancient stones, and return home hoping his obsession would end. But what happened when they arrived left them speechless forever. The bus stopped at the main parking lot of the archaeological site at 4 in the afternoon. Mateo, who had been asleep for the entire 5-hour journey from Guadalajara, woke up at the exact moment the ruins appeared on the horizon. His eyes filled with tears.
"I'm home!"
he shouted, with a joy his parents hadn't seen since before the nightmares began.
"I'm home, Mama!"
Mateo bolted off the bus before his parents could stop him. He ran directly toward the entrance of the archaeological complex, but he didn't head toward the ticket booth like any tourist would. He ran toward a side path barely visible through the vegetation, one that even the official guides didn't know existed.
"Mateo, wait!"
Anna screamed, running after him. But the boy had already disappeared among the ruins. When they finally found him 10 minutes later, he was kneeling in front of a small secondary pyramid, touching the stones with his palms and crying.
"Priest Father,"
he whispered in Nahuatl.
"I came back. I'm sorry it took so long."
Miguel filmed everything with shaking hands, because what was about to happen in the following days would forever change the scientific understanding of life after death. And Mateo was about to guide them toward the most important archaeological discovery of the 21st century. The first night in Teotihuacan was different from all the others. For the first time in 2 months, Mateo didn't wake at 3 in the morning. He slept deeply until dawn, a peaceful smile on his face that his parents hadn't seen since before the nightmares began. But when he woke up, he had something urgent to do.
"Mama, I need paper and colors,"
he said with a determination that sent chills down Anna's spine.
"I have to draw the map before I forget."
Anna handed him a notebook and crayons, thinking the boy wanted to draw the pyramids he'd seen the day before. But what Mateo began to create left them breathless. For 3 straight hours, without stopping even once, Mateo drew with mathematical precision a detailed blueprint of underground structures. Tunnels, chambers, passageways, staircases, everything connected by a ventilation system that no modern architect had ever imagined.
"Mateo,"
Miguel asked, his voice trembling.
"What is this?" "It's my house below, Papa, where we lived when there weren't ceremonies up above."
The boy pointed to a specific spot on the drawing.
"Here is my priest father's room."
He pointed to another spot.
"And here is where we kept the sacred books."
Dr. Elena Vasquez, who had traveled from Mexico City to document the case, studied the drawing for hours. What she saw disturbed her to the very core of her being. Mateo's map showed a tunnel system running exactly beneath the Pyramid of the Moon, with precise connections to other buildings in the complex. But the most shocking thing was the precision of the measurements.
"Miguel,"
Elena whispered,
"this child has drawn exact distances. Look at these numbers he put here. 12 meters down, 18 steps north, 6 stone stairs." "What does that mean?" Anna asked.
Elena looked at her with tears welling in her eyes.
"It means tomorrow we're going to excavate exactly where Mateo says." "And if we find something?" Miguel asked. "What happens if we find something?" Then we'll have to rewrite everything we think we know about life and death.
The next day, May 4th, 2019, Elena's team began excavating 12 meters deep, exactly where Mateo had marked with a red X on his drawing. 3 days later, at 2:47 in the afternoon, their shovels struck carved stone. They had found the first tunnel. But what awaited them inside would challenge even the most skeptical minds. While Elena's team excavated the tunnels during the day, something extraordinary began happening at night. Mateo had returned to his nocturnal conversations, but now they were different, more intense, more detailed, and completely terrifying. The family was staying at a small hotel 3 miles from the ruins. Every night, at exactly 3 in the morning, Mateo would sit up in bed and begin speaking in Nahuatl to someone only he could see. But this time, Anna was prepared. She had installed a professional recorder next to Mateo's bed, the same one Miguel used for his university lectures. Its audio quality was advanced enough to capture even the faintest whispers. The recording from May 6, 2019, changed everything. At 3:17 in the morning, Mateo began his usual conversation.
"Priest Father, why did it take you so long to come find me?"
Up to that point, everything was normal, but then something happened that froze the blood in their veins. A second voice responded. A deep, grave voice speaking the same archaic Nahuatl as Mateo. A voice that definitely did not belong to a 4-year-old child. "My son, I had to wait until you returned home. The tunnels were sealed, but now that they've been opened, I can visit you again." Anna woke Miguel immediately. Both listened with their hearts in their throats as their son maintained a fluid conversation with this invisible presence.
"The sacred books are still there, Father."
"Yes, Itzel, in the chamber of the jaguar where we left them. But there's something more important you need to know."
"What is it, Father?"
"You weren't the only one who returned. There are other children like you, in different parts of the world. The time of the great return has begun." Miguel recorded everything with his phone, his hands shaking uncontrollably. The dialogue continued for exactly 47 minutes. When Elena heard the recordings the next day, her face went completely pale.
"Miguel,"
she whispered, her voice breaking.
"I've studied classical Nahuatl for 15 years. That second voice is using verb conjugations that only appear in codices from the 6th century. What does that mean?"
"It means we're documenting something that goes beyond any rational explanation." But the most impactful revelation was about to arrive, because Mateo had just revealed the exact location of an archaeological treasure that would change the history of Mexico forever. May 7th, 2019, will be remembered as the day Mexican archaeology changed forever. That morning, after listening to the nocturnal recordings, Elena gathered her excavation team to make a decision that would define their careers. Would they follow the specific directions of a 4-year-old child? Mateo had been very clear in his conversation with the priest father. Walk 38 steps from the Temple of the Moon toward where the sun rises. There you'll see a stone shaped like a serpent. Dig 4 meters down. You'll find the chamber where I slept my last sleep. 38 steps. East direction. Serpent-shaped stone. 4 meters deep. Coordinates so specific they left no room for interpretation. Elena measured exactly 38 steps from the base of the Temple of the Moon, heading east. Her assistants followed in silence, cameras documenting every movement. At step number 38, Elena stopped. There, half buried by centuries of sediment, was a carved stone in the unmistakable shape of a feathered serpent. "My God," whispered Dr. Mendoza, who had arrived from Mexico City specifically to witness the excavation.
The stone is exactly where the boy said.
The team began digging immediately. 1 meter deep, nothing. 2 meters, only dirt and small ceramic fragments. 3 meters, Elena was starting to doubt. But at exactly 4 meters, one of the workers' shovels struck something solid. It wasn't dirt. It wasn't natural rock. It was a perfectly carved stone slab. It took 6 hours to completely clean the surface. What they found left them speechless. An intact burial chamber, sealed for more than 1,400 years. When the video cameras descended into the interior, the world held its breath. In the center of the chamber, on a platform of jade and obsidian, lay the mummified remains of a child approximately 8 years old. Surrounding him were ceremonial objects of incalculable value. Turquoise masks, gold necklaces, perfectly preserved codices. But what truly disturbed everyone was what they found next to the small skeleton's skull. An amulet identical to the one Mateo had drawn in one of his mental maps. Elena took photographs of everything with trembling hands.
Miguel,
She whispered over the radio.
you need to bring Mateo here immediately.
Why? What did you find?
We found exactly what he said we would find.
But the most chilling revelation was about to occur. When Mateo saw the remains of who he claimed to have been in another life, the moment that would change humanity's understanding of life after death was about to arrive. Elena had insisted that Mateo not see any images of the burial chamber before going down personally. She wanted to document his natural reaction without any external influence. At 4:30 in the afternoon on May 7th, Mateo descended for the first time into the chamber where, according to him, he had slept his last sleep more than 1,000 years ago. What happened next was filmed by 6 different cameras and witnessed by 12 specialists in archaeology, psychology, and anthropology. Mateo reached the bottom of the excavation holding his father's hand. When he saw the entrance to the burial chamber, he let go and ran inside without any trace of fear. "My room!" he shouted with genuine joy. "Papa, it's my room!" But when his eyes landed on the mummified remains in the center of the chamber, his expression changed completely. The boy stood motionless for several seconds, his eyes filled with tears. But not tears of sadness, tears of recognition.
That's me,
He whispered, touching his own chest.
that's my body from before.
Elena felt every inch of her skin erupt in goosebumps.
Mateo,
She asked, her voice trembling.
can you tell us what happened here?
The boy approached the remains slowly, showing none of the typical fear any child would have when facing a skeleton.
I got very sick after the sacred fire ceremony. My priest father brought me here to rest. He gave me this necklace
He pointed to the amulet next to the skull.
and told me that someday I would return. And then, what happened next?
Dr. Mendoza asked, recording every word.
I fell asleep, and I woke up in my body now, with my parents now.
But what happened next left everyone present completely breathless. Elena had discreetly ordered a DNA test on the mummified remains using cutting-edge technology to analyze ancestral genetic material. The results arrived 2 weeks later on May 21, 2019. Dr. Patricia Ruiz, geneticist at the National Institute of Anthropology, didn't call Elena directly. Instead, she drove 4 hours from Mexico City to deliver the news in person. When Elena saw Patricia's face at the excavation site entrance, she knew something extraordinary had happened.
I couldn't say this over the phone, Patricia said, her hands trembling as she held the manila folder. I ran the test 3 times. I had 2 independent labs verify the results. I even questioned my own equipment. Elena led her to the research tent where Miguel and Mendoza were reviewing documentation. The 4 of them sat in silence as Patricia spread the genetic analysis across the table.
The mitochondrial DNA, Patricia began, her voice barely above a whisper, shows markers that indicate direct maternal lineage, not distant ancestry, not coincidental similarity, direct descent.
Mendoza shook his head. That's impossible. We're talking about 1,400 years. The genetic drift alone.
I know what the science says should happen, Patricia interrupted. But I'm telling you what the science actually found.
She pointed to a specific sequence on the printout.
This particular marker combination is extraordinarily rare. It appears in less than 0.003% of the Mexican population. Both samples share it identically.
What exactly are you saying? Miguel asked, his voice hollow. Patricia looked at each of them before answering.
I'm saying that scientifically speaking, Mateo is a direct genetic descendant of that 8-year-old child who died 1,400 years ago. The probability of this being coincidental is approximately 1 in 47 million.
Elena felt the ground shift beneath her feet.
So the soul chose to return to its own bloodline. I'm a geneticist, not a theologian, Patricia replied. I can only tell you what the DNA shows. The interpretation is beyond my expertise.
The silence that followed lasted nearly a full minute, because what was about to be revealed would challenge even the most fundamental laws of quantum physics. In the burial chamber, where Mateo had recognized his previous body, the archaeologists found something that would forever change humanity's understanding of the soul and reincarnation. Next to the mummified remains were 3 perfectly preserved codices, wrapped in cotton fibers treated with sacred resins that had resisted the passage of centuries. Dr. Elena Vasquez and her team of paleographers worked for days to decipher the hieroglyphics. The first breakthrough came at 2:30 in the morning, 6 days after the discovery. Elena had sent her team home hours earlier, but she couldn't sleep. Something about the second codex had been nagging at her all day. She was alone in the research tent when she finally cracked the naming convention the ancient scribes had used. Her coffee cup shattered on the floor. She didn't even notice. There, in faded but unmistakable glyphs, was a list of names. Children's names. And 7th on that list, written with the careful precision of a devoted teacher, was a name she had heard a 4-year-old boy whisper in the darkness of his bedroom 2 months earlier. Itzel. Elena's hands shook so violently she could barely photograph the page. She called her assistant, Roberto, who arrived 20 minutes later to find her sitting motionless, staring at the codex.
This is real,
she whispered when he entered.
This is actually real.
What they found as they continued translating left them completely disturbed. The first codex was a detailed manual about what the priests of Teotihuacan called the journey of the eternal soul. It described with scientific precision a process by which the souls of specific children could preserve their memories when reborn in future bodies. But the second codex was even more impactful. It contained the complete list of 49 children who had participated in ritual ceremonies to preserve sacred knowledge for future generations. Each entry included the child's name, their age at the time of the ceremony, and cryptic references to the vessel of return. Among those names, written with perfect clarity in classical Nahuatl, was Itzel, age 8, vessel designation, he who remembers the stars.
the same name Mateo had mentioned since his first nightmare.
This is impossible,
whispered Dr. Mendoza, studying the hieroglyphics.
This codex is more than 1,000 years old.
But Elena had made an even more disturbing discovery.
The third codex contained what appeared to be a specific prophecy. In the time of the Great Return, when the sacred stones are discovered again, the chosen children will return to their bodies of origin to complete the sacred mission. They will guide the men of the future toward the ancestral wisdom we have preserved. The prophecy included specific dates according to the Aztec calendar. When Elena converted them to the Gregorian calendar, she nearly fainted. The dates corresponded exactly to May 2019.
Miguel,
Elena called the Hernandez family urgently.
We need Mateo to come immediately. There's something only he can complete.
When Mateo arrived at the chamber and saw the codices, he approached the third one without hesitation.
Ah, yes, he said with absolute naturalness. This one is incomplete. My priest father didn't have time to finish it before I left.
Can you complete it?
Elena asked, her heart in her throat. Mateo took a brush and ink that the archaeologists had prepared for documentation. Without hesitating for a second, he began drawing hieroglyphic symbols with the precision of an ancestral scribe. For 2 straight hours, he completed texts that had remained unfinished for more than 1,000 years. When he finished, the paleographers translated his additions. The completed text revealed the exact location of 12 more secret chambers distributed throughout Mesoamerica, where other guardian children had preserved knowledge that would change humanity's understanding of life, death, and the purpose of the soul in the universe.
Mateo,
Elena asked with tears in her eyes,
are there more children like you?
The boy looked at her with infinite wisdom.
Yes, Doctor, and they're already awakening.
But the final revelation was about to transform not only archaeology, but all human understanding of our existence on this planet. 6 months after the discoveries at Teotihuacan, the world was no longer the same. The case of Mateo Hernandez had opened a door that humanity didn't know existed. The codices he had completed became the map of an unprecedented archaeological revolution. Following the specific coordinates Mateo had added to the ancestral texts, international teams of archaeologists had found 8 of the 12 secret chambers mentioned in the prophecy. In Chichen Itza, in Monte Alban, in Palenque, in El Tajín. Each chamber contained the remains of children between 6 and 8 years old, accompanied by codices revealing knowledge about medicine, astronomy, mathematics, and physics that modern science was only beginning to comprehend. But the most impactful thing was what was happening around the world. Dr. Elena Vasquez had created the International Institute for the Study of Ancestral Memory. In just 6 months, they had documented 47 cases of children between 3 and 5 years old who recounted past lives in ancient civilizations with archaeologically verifiable details. The case from Cairo arrived first, in July 2019. 4-year-old Omar Hassan had been drawing the same image obsessively for 3 months. A corridor descending at precisely 17 degrees, opening into a chamber with 7 pillars. His parents, both university professors, had dismissed it as childhood imagination until Omar began labeling his drawings in hieratic script, a form of ancient Egyptian writing that hadn't been used in 3,000 years. When Elena's team contacted Egyptian authorities, they were initially dismissed. But Omar's drawings included something that changed their minds: detailed specifications of a ventilation system that matched no known structure in the archaeological record. In September 2019, ground-penetrating radar confirmed the existence of an undocumented chamber exactly where Omar had indicated, 17 meters beneath the northeastern corner of the Giza Plateau.
The excavation was scheduled for early 2020. A 3-year-old girl in Peru who spoke ancestral Quechua and described Incan rituals with historical precision. 5-year-old twins in Cambodia who guided archaeologists toward hidden temples in Angkor Wat. It's as if an entire generation of ancient souls has returned simultaneously, Elena explained at an international conference. All of them with one mission: to preserve and transmit knowledge that humanity had lost.
Mateo, now 5 years old, continued to be the most documented case. He had helped discover 17 new archaeological sites, and his conversations with the priest father had been translated into more than 20 languages. But the most powerful revelation arrived in December 2019. The complete texts of all the codices, once united and translated, revealed a final message that would forever change humanity's perspective on its destiny. When the world is on the brink of forgetting its ancestral wisdom, the guardians will return. They will be bridges between lost knowledge and the future of the human species. Their mission is not only to remember the past, but to prepare humanity for what is coming. Elena closed the last codex with tears streaming down her face. The phenomenon continued expanding. Every month, new cases appeared. Every week, new archaeological discoveries were made, guided by children who remembered impossible lives. And in Teotihuacan, where it all began, Mateo continued waking every night at 3 in the morning. But he no longer spoke of returning home. Now, he spoke of preparing the world for the great awakening of human consciousness. Has your child ever mentioned memories that seem impossible? Have they drawn places they've never seen? Have they spoken in languages they never learned? Because if the answer is yes, it's possible they too are one of the little guardians who have returned to change the destiny of humanity. And this story is only beginning.